Like the links to join, subscribe, star, join, become a member of this channel. I was looking at that and I see the stars next to people's names, and then I suddenly noticed like, oh, where'd this money come from? Why is the channel suddenly making more than a dollar a day? I'm like, how did this happen? It must be magic. I'm like, no, it's from the members, you idiot. That's the point of YouTube. I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of that about that earlier? I didn't even have the channel monetized like the first year. I've never thought like, oh, it never really amounts to much. It's like, you're probably not enough to worry about. And you're like, yeah, but when you think about it, it's kind of every dollar helps. Every dollar kind of trickles in. And it's still not a ton of money, but it's like, it's something to pay attention to. So thank you to the members here, subscribers, all the other. I will say that for a channel this small, the support is really is an overrepresentation of support. So which probably not the thing to say when you're asking for money. Like, no, don't give any more money. You've been much too generous, and some people have been too generous. If you donate $100, that's probably $80 too generous, and it kills me to say that, but I will always speak the truth. So Disney doubles down on J.J. Abrams and Lindelof. He's the guy who did some cringy anti-white globalist propaganda. I forget exactly the name of it. That's kind of like, I don't know if I could say this for the YouTube algorithm. It's like, this is Disney now, is kind of like the rise of anti-white Disney, where you look at Disney and fundamentally, what are they doing? Like, if we can have this conversation without ad hominem and deflection, just say, oh, is Disney giving the customer what they want? No, no. Like, to be flat out honest, wash off the political correctness. Is it telling the hero's journey? Is it telling tribalism, nationalism? That's on one side of the equation versus globalism and the communism, the found family concept of, cut off your roots, kill the past if you have to destroy your family, and just become this mixed group of rootless, tribeless, just no history, no future, no nothing, just easily led slaves. Like, yeah, that's globalism, that's communism, Bolshevism. That's what they're trying to push, that concept. To say, I don't know how many times you can say anti-white in a YouTube video, but that's kind of what they're pushing. It's like the Bolsheviks have been pushing that for 100 years, this found family concept, comrades. And Disney's pushing it. So Disney is fundamentally giving people what they don't want. They're trying to sell people what they don't want. This story is like, it's for everyone, but it's really for no one. And the numbers reflect that. Like, what are you talking about? Disney made $1 billion. Disney paid quite a bit of several billion for some of the rights to the Star Wars universe, and yes, the movies, the Disney trilogy, was profitable. Obviously, it's a decreasing amount of net profit as the films go along, but that's to be expected. But then Solo was the surprise because that actually lost money. And that's a Star Wars movie that's losing money. You should be Money should just be falling out of your tail feathers. There should be so much of it coming from Disney. Like, people should be excited, and it's like, yeah, okay. So the movies, I don't know what the net was, like $2 to $3 billion net. All right, fair enough. That's a big chunk of money. And then you just have to look in like, okay, well, for that was to the movies, but what did they pay for the movies? Like, oh, well, they paid $4 billion for some of the rights to it. So what did the park bring in? What was the net on the park? Was it a gain or a loss? I don't know, because the return on the investment for like, well, what could you have done with that money, and how would the money have worked in another investment avenue? Like, there's no way to tell. You can't predict the future. But then you look at toy sales, and that's a pretty good indicator of lack of interest, because there's not a whole lot of interest in, was this Finn and I don't even know the background characters, Finn and Rose Tico. Like, yeah, those toys weren't flying off the shelves. I mean, there was no shortage of people going to the toy stores and filming it and going like, yeah, these toys are all clearance. Rose Tico toys, what's the average toy? It starts off as like $13. All of a sudden, it's like $4, and it's just sitting there, and they're like, oh, we just have to shred the toys because they're not collectible. They'll never be collectible, and nobody wants them because nobody wants a Mary Sue purse puppy character. There's nothing in Disney Star Wars to sink your teeth into. It's like a full mask off communism. Now, here's the thing: when Lucas Star Wars came out with his prequels, those were a disappointment to people, but they weren't bombs. They were like, yeah, it's a little too much Jar Jar Banks and Return of the Jedi. It was just a little too much of Lucas and not enough of other people helping guide Lucas. Like, even creative geniuses need people to guide them, to point them in the right direction. And he had that, especially seen in Empire Strikes Back, with his now ex-wife. I think his first wife was, I think, the director of that, or she was behind the scenes pulling the strings on that. So credit to her for that. And he had a lot of good people with him on that. And then you look at the later ones, like, oh, dude, what you need way more control. Like, you're the idea person, but not so much the execution person. You need not a lot of people around you who are not yes men. So that was a disappointment. And then when people heard, oh, Disney Star Wars, Disney's going to buy it, and at 2015, or when they were talking about that, probably 2013, 14, 15, people thought, oh, well, Disney, you're thinking, like, as the adults, you're thinking, oh, okay, well, in the 90s and 2000, they were doing like the Little Mermaid type of stuff, or the Lion King, and in the 90s they were on top of the world, and you kind of remember them from that, and people didn't realize, no, Disney has changed. They got woke. They just like full globalist, just mask off nonsense. And then 2015 Star Wars came out. People looked down like, what the hell is this? Oh, it's diversity, inclusion, kindness, and compassion. Like, that doesn't sell a movie. Now, here's the thing. When I look at a movie, I go, oh, okay, so what makes a good movie? The hero's journey, tribalism, sacrifice for your tribe, for your blood, nationalism. Like, these concepts, which they sound so like, Hugo Boss fashionable. Like, no, these are natural, normal concepts that tell the stories of the alpha and omega of stories of like what people will sacrifice for. They will sacrifice for their tribe, their blood, their family, their way of life, their religion, their ancestors, their gods. Like, these are very, very deeply, deeply tied to the human experience stories. Globalism, which Hollywood has been brainwashing into for the past 50 years, is all false. It is complete plastic F doll Weimar America. It is a false illusion cast on America, where to think like anything anti-globalism and pro-nationalism and blood tribe is that suddenly it's like the illusions to World War II. They just come hit you over the head with like, no, you're just conflating different issues. The Austrian corporal also drank water. Yeah, he also did something about like freeways and the Volkswagen Bug, and it's like, yeah, a lot of great ideas. It's not like you're poisoning the well when you try to conflate all these different issues together and say, oh, no, all nationalism is bad. It's like, no, it's not. And specifically, politics aside and culture war aside, this is for the story. We're talking about the story universe. No, it tells a very real, authentic story. You will sacrifice for your family, for your tribe, your way of life. A found family concept where you've got all these different people who, like I say they look like they don't belong together, and people hear that and they lose their effing minds because they've been programmed to think, oh, no, globalism is the only way to go. It's like all the found family. It's the only way, comrade. We're all one tribe. It's like, but that doesn't tell a good story universe. And without the ad hominem, without the deflection, I'm telling you why I personally and why many other people don't like the story. It doesn't connect with us because it's not organic and authentic. It's not the human experience. Is sacrifice for your family, your way of life, your gods, your ancestors, your religion, whatever, good versus evil. But here you have like just cultural Marxist propaganda, this found family concept of everyone's a bunch of orphans who come together to battle the empire. Like, most people look at this and goes, I'm rooting for the empire. I hope they wipe you guys all out. The empire's way of life is way better. You guys are just a bunch of, look like Che Guevara and Fidel Castro marching through the mountains of Mexico or something, just causing trouble. I hope they wipe you guys all out, because like your found family concept story doesn't make any sense. What are you sacrificing for? It's a group of strangers to come together and then create a new family empire and then to fall apart, or to after you defeat the enemy, you just go your separate ways at the end? It's like, so you've defeated order and structure and brought chaos, and then you just return to chaos? Is that what Disney is? Is that what Abrams and Riri Roundhead Johnson are trying to push? Yeah, fundamentally, they're globalists. They're trying to push this kind of nonsense. So you say Abrams and Lindelof. God, what was he working on? Oh, he was working on some bizarre piece of anti-white propaganda show. I forget what the hell it was. I saw a couple of clips. I'm like, yeah, this makes perfect sense when you kind of see this kind of thing. So fundamentally, it boils down to they're selling stories that people don't want to buy. Disney Star Wars, you go, it made billions. Yes, but it should have made way more. It should have doubled that in toy sales, and it didn't get that because there was no excitement for the story. Because, like, it's propaganda when you're seeing it. And how mask off was it? It was like halfway mask off, but it wasn't enough to connect to an audience, where they can't build an empire out of the Disney Star Wars trilogy. And I can back that up with evidence. Like you look at Solo. Why did Solo bomb? If you look at the three Disney Star Wars movies and then the Solo that came after that, Solo was a better movie than the Disney Star Wars. As I was talking to that guy in the comments about, like we both thought Solo was better, and Rogue One was a pretty decent movie for what it was. It's like so you had out of that five, you had two okay movies. Like no, Solo wasn't Solo. It wasn't the story of Han Solo or Leonard Calrissian, and it wasn't a Star Wars story. But as a lightweight sci-fi movie, it was okay. Some of it worked where the Disney, like the trilogy, just didn't work at all. It completely fell apart. Like, so Solo had to suffer because the Disney trilogy was so bad. It was like they had poisoned the story. So I'm trying to say, like, when I say that people don't connect with Star Wars and Star Wars is a dead brand, I just point to Solo and the streaming services that are coming out. Like, what is streaming? Streaming is a way of saying, like, yeah, we don't have faith in a project to make a $300 million movie anymore. And to be fair, Wu Flu kind of threw everyone off. That kind of changed Hollywood. I don't know if it changed it forever, but it seems like it's really changed the landscape of Hollywood to bring streaming. But streaming is like, okay, instead of a $300 million 90-minute 2 hour film, we're gonna make 20 episodes of something with a lower buy-in point and try to get people to the streaming platform. But it also kind of looks like a lack of faith in the product. And then you look at what they've come up with, the Mando and all this stupid stuff they have on streaming has no connection. Like people were into the Mando for a few episodes, and then they fired Gina Carano, and it was like, what's the point? I don't even. What's the name of the newest Star Wars thing that just came out? I can't even remember the name of it. Andor. Andor. Like it came out. I think there's 9 episodes. How many people are watching? Listen, for Andor, Star Wars, She-Hulk, Rings of Power, and the Game of Thrones things. Those are the 4 stream things that are out now that are supposed to be big. Nobody's talking about any of them. Game of Thrones, or not Game of Thrones, House of Dragons has some energy behind it, but man, it's like it is not. So like all this stuff, what happens with all these shows that are either underperforms or bombs, Andor and She-Hulk are actually bombs, are like they come out with the first iteration of the show, Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, and it connects with people. You connect with an audience. You're vibing on a certain wavelength, and then a couple of years, or even Sex in the City, they did the same thing. It's like then they come out with the second iteration of the show, and it's like the copy of the copy. And this is when the Jurassic Park or Michael Crichton book, the defects start to show up in the chaos theory of like it's you only carried it out to so many decimal places, and you're starting to see these these strange attractors start to fall apart. Because it's like, oh, so the tribal story, the nationalist story, the blood tribe, the hero's journey, what is this? Oh, this is like, it's the same thing, but we just swapped out the characters to insert like globalist propaganda about a found family. It's like, well, you fundamentally changed the core of the story. You see that, right? Like, yeah, but it's diverse. And so when you talk to Abrams or Lindelof, and you go, so what's good about this story? They go, oh, it's diversity and representation. I go, but those aren't values to me in storytelling. Oh, but those are values to them in storytelling. I go, yeah, the values to me are the hero's journey and a story that resonates with tribalism. Those are values that most people, and I'm not just saying this marching around like Hugo Boss with the one arm in the air. Like most people feel that way. They want to resonate with the story, and they look at this what looks like a diversity checklist in LA, a casting call of, okay, we've got a Chinese girl, a Nigerian dude, an English or Australian girl, just going through these checklists is like this united colors of anything. It's like, yeah, that's great. Representation. But those aren't values to me in storytelling. I want to see, and not in this kind of story. This is like the hero's journey story. You have to sacrifice for something. Like, oh no, we're just like a nation of ideas. That's not how people are. People are a nation of the blood, the tribe. That's what makes a nation. And a nation that goes from being of the tribe to a nation of ideas is a failing nation. It's like, hey, welcome to the West, friendo. Welcome to the West. It's like, oh, it's representative of the world around us. But people don't like the world around them. It's representative of like modern. Oh, I better be careful here. Are you representing something positive or negative? I know this is already too much for YouTube, but I'll put this on Bit Chute, obviously. Are you representing something negative? Do people like globalism? No, most people do not like globalism. Is globalism going to be the way of the future? No, we're probably headed for a civil war and a World War III, and there's going to be, there's going to be the consequences of that because these puppet masters have been pushing globalism for a long time. Let me try this again for YouTube. I don't know, like doing these off the cuff videos. What do you call it? Extemporaneous? No, it's out of time. I don't know. I can never think of phrases when I want to. These kind of videos are a challenge to do, and stay within the navigational guidelines. Talking about like globalism and nationalism, it's already like right on the cusp of what's allowed for YouTube. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Subscribestar. Thanks to the recent YouTube members and Subscribestar members. I know I get a lot of support. I mean, relative to the channel size, I think I get a lot of support relative to the channel size. But that's all on you guys. That's all on very generous members. Anyway, I'll see you guys on the next episode.